We are ready to go. Knight to f3, knight comes out to f6, g3 played here by Gukesh. This is one of the openings that he has tried playing here in many games. b6, bishop g2, bishop b7 and castles. This was what Gukesh used to love playing as a kid. He would then play d3, e4, but now he's more open to different setups. Of course, plays his knight out to c3, bishop g7. Pragg goes for the double phi and Keto system. d4, pawn takes, queen takes d4. And there could be some discovered attack, but it's not happening right now. Pawn comes up to d6. And Gukesh can go for this b3, bishop b2, which is a nice way to continue in this position. So rook comes to d1 and knight to d7 played here by black. Pawn comes up to b3. The bishop needs to be placed on the b2 square. Black castles here. And Gukesh is thinking about how he wants to continue bishop b2. White's position looks nice, you know. You can jump in with the knight to d5 at some point. You can play rook c1. You can also think about trading these two bishops. c6 square could get potentially a bit weak. Meanwhile, Praggnanandhaa's position is almost bulletproof. You can see that there are no weaknesses just yet. He goes rook c8, which is a good move. The rook takes the semi-open file. Knight goes back to e1, offering a trade of bishops, which I think Pragg will happily take it. Or maybe he's also thinking about queen c7. That's possible. There's also knight e4 that needs to be considered, unleashing an attack on the queen. But knight e4, just queen goes back to d3. And maybe there could be mass exchanges. Yeah, it's possible. Knight e4, then you take here, then you take here, and then you take here. And suddenly you have three pairs of minor pieces traded. And I think Pragg is trying to assess if that is better or should he directly take on g2. And that requires some bit of calculation. He plays knight e4. The queen comes back to e3. And now I believe there will be some trades. Knight takes c3 is very interesting because you can't really take on b7. Knight d1 attacks the bishop and the queen. So that seems like a good move to make. He plays first bishop c3. Gukesh takes back. Knight takes. Queen takes. Bishop g2. Knight takes g2. And now b5. Very nice play by Praggnanandhaa, hitting the c4 pawn. And here you will realize that after b takes c4, taking here is not particularly great because knight e5 and white is left with a weak pawn. But perhaps there's rook d4. Maybe this is how you can go. Oh, there is d5. Oh, there's crazy lines here. But Gukesh, in order to kind of avoid all of this, takes it with the pawn. But look at this pawn. It's weak and isolated. And the square in front of it gets weakened. But white does have something in his favor, and that is a slightly weakened king, which means a knight could potentially jump here. Rook first takes the open file. Knight goes to b6, attacking the c4 pawn, also closing down the b file. And now Praggnanandhaa thinking here, what is the best way to continue? Maybe rook to d4. Oh, Gukesh goes rook d4. Sorry, Gukesh wanted to now put his rook on the king side. Queen goes to c7. Attacking here, maybe tripling up. And this is actually not an easy position for white to create something. Let's imagine you put your rook here. It's not doing much. h4 played by Gukesh. He's trying for this play on the king side with h5. But for now, the rook is controlling that square. And I think black can actually ignore it and bring his rook to c8. There's also a possibility to play e5 to hit the rook on d4. He plays rook c8. Gukesh has 3 minutes 54 seconds. Pragg has 3 minutes on the clock. Now here, Gukesh needs to take care of the c4 pawn. A good way to do it is queen d3. Why? Because if you take here, 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 rook b7 should be a draw. Should be an equal endgame. So with some care, Gukesh should be able to hold this. But there's a tempting idea, which is to jump in with the knight to g4 and try to attack here with knight h6, because you already have a rook that can enter into the attack on f4. So with a knight, rook, and he plays it. But this is a mistake. The mistake is very subtle. You play h5, and now, of course, Gukesh wants to go for a check, because what else? Now he's attacking here. But here comes king g7. You stand in the way here. There's no good discovered check. Rook f4, attacking here, and Pragg finds it. Pragg finds it, h5. So this is the line which Gukesh has to calculate. Now rook f4, he's attacking here. If you take this, then rook takes f7 and white is winning. But instead f6 and the knight is trapped here on h6. And this, I think, is a very key point in this entire variation. This knight h6, rook f4, f6. And I think Gukesh is now trying to calculate it out. But it is maybe a bit too late, because the time that he spent with going there and coming back, he comes back. An unhappy choice here for white. A very unhappy choice. Because now black can actually start rolling the central pawns, e5, d5, and there's nothing much that you can do here. This pin on the c file is absolutely deadly. Pragg, who has 2 minutes 43 seconds, both players have somewhat the equal time on the clock, is just making sure that e5 works well. Thinking here. And he goes pawn to e5. He pushes his pawn to e5 here. And that pawn is now attacking the rook on d4. Gukesh comes back, rook d1. And d5 played. Now the problems multiply. Firstly, d4 is a threat that forks the queen and the knight. There's also a threat of kind of taking this pawn on c4. So you just can't take on d5, by the way. You take here, I take here, you take here, I simply take, and there's a pin, you lose the queen. So d5 is a very strong move by Praggnanandhaa, and Gukesh is now down to 2 minutes on the clock. He has too many problems here in this position to even try and solve them. One idea is to simply move the queen somewhere to give up this c4 pawn. But then it's just a free pawn, and I think you have to do it. There's no other way. You have to play it. And Gukesh is trying to struggle here. What is the way to get out of this? One of the things that Pragg has done really well after losing his previous game to Magnus is coming to this game with a fresh mindset. Queen b3 played, and now takes on c4. The queen comes back, trying to blockade. The queen moves up to c6. And now this queen controls the a4 square. It is looking at knight a4 to be played. This is still a position that is possible to hold, but it's not so easy. Knight a4, queen goes back, pawn pushes forward to c3. And now the rook is attacked. Step by step, black is pushing the white army behind. The rook comes back to d1. And I believe Pragg can actually jump in with his knight to attack the rook on d1. So knight jumps to d2, attacking the rook on d1. Rook dc1. The pawn is being put under pressure. And the rook comes to d8. Now attacking rook comes to d2 is a big threat. Whew. The way in which Praggnanandhaa has completely dominated the position is quite impressive. Very impressive. Gukesh has 10 minutes, 40 seconds. He goes queen to b3. Rook comes to d2. Attacking the pawn on e2. Very strong. Queen b8 check. And king comes up to g7. And now rook to e1 played. He's defending the pawn on e2. How does black continue here? c2 played. If you take this, there is c1 queen, so he tries to blockade with his rook. Pragg goes queen b6. A queen trade is just resignation because the black rook's knight absolutely super active. So he goes queen a8. Now Praggnanandhaa is thinking about his next idea. Rook c3 to attack here could be possible. I love how Pragg has kept a lead on the clock and also has a great position. Gukesh down to 27 seconds. Pragg is super focused here, razor sharp. He's just making sure that he doesn't put a foot wrong. He goes queen to d6. The queen moves here. And now queen takes a7. Is possible. Will he take that pawn? It is risky. He goes queen e4. But I believe Pragg has found a new concept, which is that first trade the queens. He doesn't trade it. But knight to d1 is a very nice move, attacking the knight on e3. Pragg has 37 seconds. Gukesh down to 6 seconds here. The knight under some pressure. Knight d1 played. Excellent chess. If you take on d1, I have queen here. He goes queen b3. And now Prag goes rook to c3, presses the clock, knight takes c2, but f2 falls, and Gukesh resigns here. The queen